bring this meeting to order. November 13th, 2017, Charlotte Selectboard meeting. First agenda item, any adjustments to the agenda? Yes, Steve?
During the windstorm, there was damage to the Thorpe barn, and Jenny Call brought it to my attention. So I called a couple of contractors and got one quote, which is on the table. So I just wondered about adding that to the agenda for discussion and possible action.
So if we get ahead of schedule, maybe we can use that as a filler. Yes?
Just out of curiosity, I'm here representing the 755 item, or 855 item. Is there any chance that maybe that could be moved up, considering I was here all day as it was too?
850, anyone have any objections to moving that? Yeah, let's try and do that at...
Fill it in if necessary. It doesn't need to be a set time. I'm
Yeah.
kind of here for at least the beginning part.
Let's shoot for 7:08. I think the carpet for town hall item is going to be less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
So that'll keep us on time. Public comment? Yeah, I think you're supposed to wait 7 seconds. Let's see. So, Krista Hofsis, could you come to the front row? The mic picks you up better. This is for an appointment to the Conservation Commission with a term ending April 30th, 2020. Welcome. Why would you like to be reappointed, right? Or
no, I will
appointed?
be joining for the first time, hopefully.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've always had an interest in conservation, and I got my degree at UVM in environmental science with a focus in conservation biology. And right now I'm the program coordinator for Lewis Creek Association. So I love this stuff. I'm passionate about it, and I just bought a house in Charlotte about 6 months ago, so I figured it'd be great to serve Charlotte in some way and help to keep it conserved.
Great. Well, welcome. I've seen you at the Conservation Commission meetings.
Yep,
And
yep.
that was through Lewis Creek. Any other questions for Krista?
It's already got a track record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, doing great work. Thank you.
Great.
Have a motion?
Motion to approve Krista Hofsis for appointment to the Conservation Commission, term ending April 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, I guess we're a little early. Let's take up the Thorpe barn real quick. So it looks like there was damage during the windstorm.
Right.
There's a picture. Pretty much a good section of the gable end came out with some of the bracing that holds up the boards. I don't know if anyone wants to see. And the quote is a 3-day quote, $35 an hour for $840 total.
And this
$840.
comes out of the Thorpe Barn funds.
Yeah. So that's, 3 8-hour days of labor. And,
No materials.
well, it says it covers materials, so maybe they're 6-hour days and some materials. It looks like the boards are still there. They might need to just get a couple to hold them up.
Actually, the next line says, to be safe, let's request 1,000 to cover
Oh, labor and
labor
materials.
materials.
So it's that 160 materials.
Yeah, I think he said some of the existing wood can be reused and some of it can't.
So, someone want to make a motion not to exceed $1,000?
Not to exceed $999.
Works for me.
Works better with our purchasing policy.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
We're making a motion to approve the repairs of the Thorpe barn
not to exceed $999.
Do you know if he's insured?
Yeah, the email says has Jameson Insurance, and I would get a certificate of insurance. Well,
Okay.
I'll call tomorrow and get a certificate of insurance.
It's just one guy, so he doesn't need comp. Is that it?
Right, he works for himself.
Okay.
Is there a second? Oh, you did? Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Let's look, the 8:50 agenda item. To hire Robert Boer to clean the town hall and library. Christina, do you want to speak to this, or does anyone?
Yeah, so we've had some issues with the cleaner. Unfortunately, as Dean has pointed out, we just barely went out for bid for this. But over the last couple of months, we've found that the quality level has been extremely lacking. I find myself doing a lot of the duties that we're paying the cleaner to do here during the day. So the last time it was brought up, there was some question because I'm a 40-hour-a-week employee. My husband was going to be accompanying me during the cleaning to make it a quicker process. So instead, I felt the best way to really make the option is to make him the primary of the cleaner. And then I, as spousal help, will be here. And he will be the primary person responsible. And he is not on payroll, so he would be the person that would be actually paid for it. I'm not sure about the library because I do know that they mentioned to Dean something about scheduling, but I'm not sure the library was aware that there's a 30-day clause in the contract. I think the library wanted to get someone fairly quickly, but with our cleaner, I believe once Dean cancels it, the contract remains intact for 30 days. So I wouldn't be able to start unless they decide to not fulfill the 30 days. I'm willing to do both for the same price. If for some reason the library would like to have someone else, then I will do the town hall for half of what the monthly cost was. So, or Robert is. So whichever you guys prefer, if you would prefer to have both done, if you want the library to go out on their own, however, the amount would be the same.
Make a motion to hire Robert Boer to clean the town hall and library for the current contract amount, which is what,
$750, I believe, a month.
$750 a month.
So discussion, I guess I wasn't here for the last meeting where it was discussed. This would be kind of basically under the same contract as the existing contract?
Like the same contract.
Robert would be entering into a contract with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
To clean.
And is insured and,
He would be running under payroll, so that the town's insurance would be covering it just like they do any cleaner that doesn't already have insurance on it.
so he's becoming a new town employee?
Basically,
Uh,
strictly a cleaner.
Okay, and
With a
it's
contract.
stipend based?
Yep.
So it'd kind of be like the constable where it's not on the pay grid?
Correct. Yes, it would be,
checking.
it would be stipend based, yes.
And you do that with the senior center, right? The cleaner in the senior center, is that the way we
The
pay
cleaner
her?
at the senior center, yeah, she's not on payroll.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I know we discussed it.
Okay, well, I feel caught up. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thanks. Mary?
So does that mean that the letter goes out to cleaners that we currently have to terminate them? Excellent.
So that I guess just from a standpoint, I guess we could get together tomorrow to figure out, discuss with the library and figure out when our start time might actually be then, if the letter's already gone out, to figure out what our time frame might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. Let's see, the 710 item. Approve the purchase of a carpet installation for the town hall. The price is $16,638. 3 quotes were obtained. The lowest quote was from New England Floor Covering. And the proposal was finalized after the carpet pattern was selected. We saw at the last regularly scheduled select board meeting. This will be paid for from the Improvement and Repair Reserve Fund, and there's currently sufficient money in the fund at $28,270.
I think we've been, keeping like $30,000 on the budget for this item?
22.
22. So we decided for a cheaper option.
Did you get extra pieces?
Yep, this
Yeah.
includes the,
That's good.
what do you call it, the attic stock.
Which is always nice. Something gets stained, I can just pop a square out, put a new square in.
Oh, that square looks new.
Not a
Let's do
whole
3
new.
more.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to replace town hall carpeting contract to New England floor covering for a lump sum price of $16,638.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
Perfect.
I think amen's
Couple of years.
appropriate here, geez.
Just wanted to make sure we got everything right.
3 or 4 times.
And the only other thing we ought to consider sometime is the chairs.
These chairs?
Well, not only these chairs, but those chairs being on the
All
carpet.
being on the carpet.
Because some of those chairs
We
don't
talked
even
about
have the protectors on the bottom of them.
Well, that might be another 5-year process.
You got to start it sometime.
Dean, we should, like Frank said, we should really look at these chairs as they're sitting on the carpet.
These chairs here?
Yeah,
Some of them have those little plastic things in.
and some don't.
Maybe that's that state warehouse.
Yeah. Get rollers.
The Quonset hut too, I think has some.
What's that?
The Quonset hut has surplus in it.
Ah,
We'll put these in the Quonset hut.
That's how we'll get rid of them.
If we don't have any chairs, our
Before
meetings
the-
will go faster, won't they? Sorry, no room.
Okay.
Let's see, running a little early, 7:15 budget presentation, senior center's here. Would you like to present? Could you come up to the front? I think the mic picks us up better. It's a VCAM request.
You have copies, correct?
Yes.
How would you like to proceed? You want to go down each item and ask us things about them, or want us to tell you about them? How do you want to do it?
Well, we received a summary from Dean that the revenue is proposed to increase by $1,000, mostly from programming. And expenses are proposed to increase by $8,677 due to a step increase from the volunteer coordinator. And the main driver for the increase in expenses is the replacement of the kitchen countertops.
That's correct.
You guys got anything planned in the back of the building where the siding is deteriorating
The
rapidly?
main problem in the back are the trim boards at the bottom, which are delaminating. I didn't think that there was a problem with the siding itself. If there is, you know something I don't.
I don't think, if I was back there the other day, looking at it with the, getting a bid for the generator
Is that on the north side?
on the west side mostly.
Oh, really?
I was just curious.
Well, the trim that you have at the bottom
Freeze board, yeah.
is a material that was always been a problem. It's going to have to be replaced, but it is not structurally a problem, nor is it at this point an access for problems to get inside. It is going to have to get done, but it doesn't need it yet. We'll look at the siding. That's a cement board. We have not had any problems with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna cause water intrusion or anything
Well,
yet,
that
but-
would be a problem.
Yeah, I didn't take notes, I don't remember off the top of my head, I just remember thinking I should look at that again.
Well, we'll look at it.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's on a list. The trim part is definitely on a list to be done, but didn't think it needed it, and other things were needed more.
Wasn't on the priority at the top.
Any other parts of the proposed budget people want to discuss?
Is there anything else you want to tell us?
I see the note about the snow plowing, I know Steve gave the cheapest bid for the fire department too, so that's probably it.
Yeah, I saw that maybe as a, I
Probably
mean, we
the
can
connected.
move right into it, but yeah, also as an attached email. I don't know if you saw on the backside of the budget.
Yeah, so I was reading, it said they used Steve in the past, but I don't know.
Yeah, and so the senior center is requesting that we consider adding Suzanne, I don't know her last, Suzanne, what is it?
Ferland.
Ferland, to be on the preferred vendors list. She charges $30 per hour. And Steve Denton, who does the plowing, who has bid $25 for each plow and $50 for sanding. Has that been a steady price he's offered over the years, or?
I think so, and he's very reliable.
Yeah,
So
and it's
reliable.
Pretty,
Yeah, it's been, and it's just really kind of important in that venue.
yeah, especially the sanding.
He's been very good. When there's been a bad day, you can call him, and he gets down there and takes care of it before somebody slips on it, and
And just, it seems like an incredibly
Yeah.
good
Well,
price.
my comment was that he was a little bidder next door, so one could by association say that it probably sort of went out to bid anyway. So,
I would definitely agree with that.
So, I don't know, procedurally, can we do that now, or should we wait to do that at another?
I think you could do it now.
So, someone have a motion to add those two vendors to the preferred vendor list?
I'll make the motion to add to the senior center's preferred vendor list, Susan Ferland, the cleaner for the senior center, and Stet and Excavating for the snowplowing contractor.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
No more discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
hey,
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's good. And back to the budget. Any other questions about the senior center budget?
big chunks, just the cupboards, right, under maintenance is the only one that went up.
It's pretty much, looks like maintenance went up.
Yep. Looks like to me.
Have you picked the material for that?
I'm looking at Cory, I think.
It's nice,
There
durable.
was some conversation.
yeah. We understood you were supportive of having it be Corian, which is more expensive and much better and lasts much longer than what we have, which, and we've been gigged a few times by the state who doesn't like what we have.
No, the health department doesn't like.
Oh, it was because there was a repair, well,
Yeah,
a change in.
They're not fond of Formica.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Still late. Yeah. Wow, we're cruising. Rebecca, you're here for the Energy Committee? Yeah. How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
So Susie couldn't make it, so it's just me, Rebecca Foster.
Dean wrote us some notes. I could start there, and then maybe
Sure,
people ask
yeah.
questions. So there's a proposed budget of $4,000. It's a decrease from the FY18 budget by $30. And $1,000 in the budget is earmarked as match for a grant. What grant are you looking to apply to?
So actually, it'd be great, could we start at the bottom and work our way up?
Sure.
Like, so, I
Conferences
think
and travel.
the bottom thing was 500 for conferences.
Yep.
So that's been pretty much steady across. I personally think at some point it should go up because there've been a lot of really great and interesting conferences that are very helpful for all the members. We've also grown a little bit. We now have 8 members, one of whom is a student at CVU. So they're just, this fall, there was a climate change economics one, there was a municipal and energy conference in Montpelier, and there's the annual conference for energy committees, which is coming up in December, so that's always there. So it's good stuff and very helpful to be able to do those. The next one is education, right?
Yeah, and outreach.
Education. We've been doing a lot more in the years that I've been on the committee. I feel like we're doing many more evenings where we make presentations. So, and actually as part of, in conjunction with Button Up Day, which is actually now Button Up Month, we're doing 2 programs before the end of this month. One on climate, cold climate heat pumps at the library, and another one on solar power with a lot of panelists and stuff. So that the budget for that is, incidentals. Really, it's honoraria if we're having people from other towns or food or just so we generally never have to pay rent for anything because we go to the library or we go to the church or something like that. So those are pretty small increments. And then the rest of it together, I like to call it basically our project money. And this year we divided it out into 2 parts, but it's always, in the last few years, it's gone toward the town buildings, either the library or the senior center or town hall, and working towards efficiency of the town buildings, usually in the form of an assessment of what needs to be done and what fixes can we make, and very occasionally, it's not a lot of money, so we don't have money to put towards the actual fix, so it's usually toward an analysis of what fix needs to be done, and then the rest of the money needs to be raised in another way. So we separated out, Negev is the New England Grassroots Environment Fund, and they have started a series of grants which they're now offering twice a year. And they will continue to offer that, and it's toward energy committees in Vermont and to help them in a variety of ways. So we can come up with a project, and we've talked, one of the ideas is to put it toward collaborating with neighboring towns a little bit better. But you could do also more technical, you could put it towards technical things, or an energy coordinator, or there are a lot of different options. But one of the strengths is that you can use it, as if you have a matching fund, then you can get more. So it's not a sure thing. It's not like we have the grant now, but it's there as the potential that we could do. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, we would put it in with our usual project fund for the library, and the next one is really the firehouse.
Yeah, it says library extension and senior center. I think the senior center, they did it before and after.
That might be this year's.
I have fire station.
And I got,
Did I give you two, I think I gave you this year's and the
Yeah.
proposed
You
FY
on the-
'19.
You on the 18-19?
yeah, okay. Wrong page.
Did you do the fire station this past year? That
No,
was in
we haven't done
this
anything, yeah.
Budget?
They did the senior center before the addition.
We did it before and after.
Right, before and after, yeah.
So the only comment or kind of input I would have about the conferences and travel is I've kind of seen it looked at in two different ways. If the Energy Committee realizes that a lot of people want to go to conferences that didn't used to, and there's kind of an uptick in demand, or that there are more interesting conferences that are happening to go to, that it might make sense to up the budget number a little. But if there's like an unexpected, really interesting conference that 4 people want to go to, and the money's not there in the budget, that's either something you could come to the select board and say, hey, we're thinking we're going to be $100 over on this, but this is a really important conference, and I don't see why we wouldn't find that money in other professional development line items we have. The select board has one too for conferences. So, I would, if you don't see it forecasting more and more every year, I wouldn't worry about it, and I wouldn't not go to these because of not having money in that line item.
Okay, great, thank you,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, usually, a lot of these are, $25, $35, so they really, we can fit a lot of conferences into that
Yeah.
500.
And you have a
but-
pretty active committee, and I know a lot of people do this professionally also, so.
Yeah, and we're careful about that distinction too. If somebody's going for their own
For work,
purposes,
right.
then we don't
Right,
pay
if
for
it,
that.
right, but if it dovetails for
Yeah.
one of the town projects,
Yeah.
that's great. Any other?
No.
Well, the fire station will be a challenge. Lots of big doors.
Yeah.
Do they stay open until they come back?
Nope.
No.
Well,
It's
they
on.
all got up. Every once in a while at sundown, when the sun shines in the doors, the remotes don't work. But on occasion they miss it, but usually someone jumps out and, hits the button and jumps over the I-beam, the light beam,
Got it.
kind of thing.
No, that's it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Shop Park and Wildlife Refuge Oversight Committee? Oh, yeah, we can wait. I think she's gonna be here at 7:30.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
We got a minutes to do.
Sure, actually quite a few.
Probably.
Actually, technically, I have till 7:45.
I'm not gonna be able to do those.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 9th as may be amended.
We don't have enough people.
Yeah, we'll have to skip that one.
Lane's not here.
2 of us were absent.
Oh, heavens. That guy's just messed it up.
And then Frank can't the next one.
But that's okay.
Yeah, you guys can do
Yeah,
this one.
3 of us
Yep.
can.
See, I meant to say October 23rd.
I thought I heard that. Second? Wow, perfect minutes, Kathy. All those in favor of approving the minutes of October 23rd, 2017, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Opposed?
An abstention.
I think we can do October 30th, but
Yeah.
I'll abstain.
Make a motion to approve the, should we do those 30 or wait?
Yeah, we can, we have to, yeah.
Motion to approve October 30 minutes as may be amended.
I'll second it.
That's a pretty short one.
Yep, it was. I didn't see anything.
I haven't seen anything there either.
No, nothing stood out to me. Everything looks good.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of October 30th, 2017?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstain? Want to get the last one out of the way? It's even shorter.
Sure.
Wait. Oh, I didn't have.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of November 3rd, 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, aye.
Aye.
Of us, or?
The minutes, last minutes.
Oh, I'm all set.
Yeah. Opposed? And one abstention. Hey, welcome. I think so. So we have a little note from Dean, and then this is kind of what I did with the other 2 committees. So the Shot Park and Wildlife Refuge Oversight Committee's budget is proposed to increase by $4,548 to $21,700. This includes a $2,500 grant match, which isn't included in the budgeted revenue until you get it. But if you got it, it would show up there, and that would be a wash.
Which we got this year.
And I
This
can-
year, yeah.
Yeah, so it will show up on that we asked for it and it was
Got it.
offset in the revenue side.
Right. So.
And I can go over just a couple things on this. And also, just, I did kind of do some notes on what we spent last year and where we stand this year, and I can hand those out, and if you have any questions, we can go over those as well. But we can focus on next year's budget.
Thank you.
So do you want to go over it line by line, or do you want to know what changed? How do you guys want to do it?
I want to hear the part where you cut it in half and do twice as much work.
Oh, yeah, well, that's, we've already done that. This would be double if it wasn't for these two ladies and some of us.
Why don't I just quickly go over it,
Claudia.
and then I know Jesse has some updates on the Bog Bridge project. The main increases in the next year is to continue working on bog bridges. We've been working on this over the years and involving a lot of volunteer work. This year we have a project coming up starting tomorrow to replace an area of bog bridges. And that's going to be within this year's budget, but we've included extra money next year because we've had a cost estimate for the section we're working on now that was about $5,400, something like that. We're able to do it within our budget of about $3,000 this year, but we know it's going to cost more. And the reason we were able to get it lower this year was contacting a number of different contractors and also including volunteer labor for dismantling bog bridges. The other increases are, we haven't included in the budget before cutting trees, and we've had 2 years where we've spent about $1,000 cutting trees. This last year there was a large tree by the parking area that needed to be cut down. It had damaged the fence. So that's included. We have $1,000 in the budget for tree cutting. And then we wanted to have an event next year. This idea came up recently to try to get people to the park and for people to know the park, appreciate the park, and also make it possible for people to access the park who can't usually get there. And I don't know, maybe Greg would like to talk about that because he had some thoughts on that and actually brought the idea up.
A lot of senior Vermont Charlotters are unable to use the park because if you enter through the lower part, you have to climb the hill to get up to see some of the most beautiful parts of the park. And so one of the ideas here is to arrange for some buses or a bus to transport seniors up to the upper part of the park off Route 7. Come in that way and then have a horse-drawn carriage available to take people around and show them the views of the lake and the upper reaches of the park. And perhaps 30, 40, 50, 100 people who wouldn't get to do it otherwise, either through handicap or age or some other reason, would be exposed to the park.
From what entrance?
We'd come in through the
Thorpe Barn.
Okay.
Yep. Just one day. It's an event to
It's
sort
a-
of get,
it's an
because
event.
we figure if people see what they can get by starting at the bottom and walking up and just become familiar with what an asset the park is, that more people who aren't even aware that it's there will start using it. And that's the whole point of the park, is to have your community
And the
use
people
it.
who have been able to access that upper reach have really, it's mind-blowing. It's really beautiful up there. I hadn't done it till about 2 years ago, and just blew me away.
Yeah, it's very nice. I got a guided tour this year.
I think everybody's remembered now on the committee. So-
I went up there, I don't know, a few months ago, but I didn't feel like getting out and opening up the gate. I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know why. Maybe it was late, I can't remember, but I was with Tristan and I just wanted to show him that beautiful, but it wasn't convenient. You had to get out and do all that, so.
Well, I went with the Adirondack Club to Camp Santinoni this summer, and they have a horse-drawn wagon that can accommodate people in wheelchairs. And it was just so delightful, slow-paced draft horses. And I said, gee, would you ever come to Vermont? He said, oh, I come to Virgins, I go to Shelburne Farms.
No way.
I could do it, and he gave us a very reasonable price. I said, that would be so fun. You know, little families with little kids and grandmothers get this nice little tour.
How many people does it hold for?
I don't know, 15 or so.
Oh, wow, it's big.
So that's that line item on the very bottom. And the bog bridges is a necessity. They're rotting. And that's really a maintenance issue. And the other problem that we're having in the park is, which we're trying, part of the head of the storm I think will help. We've had a lot of erosion under the two bridges that we have, and they're undermining the bridge abutments that are, and we haven't really tackled how to solve that problem, but it's pretty perilous. I mean, we're in danger of losing them, which would cost a lot more than trying to mitigate the damage that's already being caused. The streams are undercutting them. And then we have an erosion issue coming down because they're kind of built into the hill, and the erosion is, the dirt is washing down and washing around and getting them that way as well. But we don't really know how much that's going to cost us yet. We're trying to tackle this, but we will have a better idea once we get this first. It's 17 units of bog bridges. Bog bridges come in different lengths, but each length of bridge has a number of units to it, and the next big section is 27 units, I think. Yeah,
So a
26.
unit would
It's a
be
bit-
the
12.
flat boards plus the supports underneath.
Yeah. So we don't really have a choice as a community to replace that because they're actually becoming dangerous. They're rotting and
It's been an ongoing project, and some have been done, but the bigger sections haven't been.
Jenny's been single-handedly rebuilding 2 or 3 sections.
With volunteers, with volunteers.
Yeah, very, very limited volunteer. Everybody looks at that job and is like, oh, no, that's okay, Jenny. You get the lumber carried in there. No, you don't, you do, you're amazing. Anyway,
We
so
try anyway.
that's the really big ticket item on here. Any questions?
So you're ahead of the storm. Estimate is it a different job, or it was different money last year?
It's a different project.
Okay.
There are 2 projects in the park, and one we completed this summer with the grant that we got with the first payment in July. So the project's been completed, and this is a second one. This is sort of near the northern edge of the park, where some horses come through from the Greenbush Road area into the park that way, and it's by a field, so water runs down and there's some erosion there. So that's the second project that was designed through the Ahead of the Storm project. And we will be applying for a grant. The application process is a little bit later this year, but we'll be eligible to apply. So we'll see what we can do.
Does the grant have matching funds?
No.
It's 100% grant?
Yes, yeah, for construction.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
I like those.
Yeah.
It's really good. Mary, you have a question?
So then you need to put that $2,500 grant into your revenue side. This year you have 3202 sitting there for the head of the storm grant for budget 17-18, so you should put the 2,500 in revenue for 18-19. And so if you don't get the 2,500 grant, then you have to do the 2,500 expense.
Yeah, so it's in the, just like this year, it was in the park budget,
Yep.
but then it was in the revenue side.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thank you. You guys are doing great work, and I love the Know Your Park Day.
We'll have some fun in the park.
We can be good fun for families.
Yeah, do you know, is there a date yet, or?
No, we gotta get the money.
We don't have any.
Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
I think the idea would be to do it either late summer, early fall. I think that's probably the best time.
The park's
One
in
of the
good condition.
driest
Yeah,
times, the
dry.
driest time
Yeah.
of the year.
Make sure you
We're pretty
order good
excited
weather.
about it.
Yeah, that's a great
Make sure you
idea.
order good weather.
Okay,
We
okay.
do it from here and have people park down here because we don't want people coming in and out of that access or even having the idea that they can. So we would center the,
Run the
that's
bus.
why we would do the buses down here. So people would park down here and then head out. Or they could park in the Ferland and come out too.
Could shuttle people from the town party too.
Yeah.
The beach.
It's a little longer
So-
than running.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So,
guys.
Thank you.
8:00. Go ahead. Is Charlie Baker here? You are. Do you mind going early?
I can do that.
Okay. Charlie Baker, Executive Director of Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, here with an annual update.
So, thank you for making time on your agenda. I try to come in each year at this time just to check in and see how we're doing, get any feedback. So I think you got a report from me in your packet. Dean, I hope you did. Yeah.
Yep.
You did. The first page really describes what the Regional Planning Commission is. A little bit over 50 years old. Our board is made up of the municipalities. A little bit about how we're funded. We do get dues from each municipality, but then we leverage that for about every dollar of local money, we get about $11 of state and federal funding. Jim Donovan is your representative right now, and Marty Illick is your alternate. Thank you for sending both of them our way. They're active participants in our work, and Dean and Darrell represent the town on various committees. So thank you for that also. The second page, and happy to stop anytime if you guys have any questions. I'm just doing a quick intro review. The second page reviews some specific things that we may have worked on last fiscal year with you. The park and ride study, might want to ask you about that. The grants and aid, which was a little bit of money in your town highway budget to deal with some erosion issues. There was a hazard mitigation plan you approved, the local emergency operations plan. Started doing the road erosion inventories. I think you had some recent conversations with Chris Dubin on our staff about that, some traffic counts, mapping, things. And then on the next page, you may know that Route 7's been under reconstruction. That's a joke. I'm pretty sure you all know that. And hopefully wrapping up. Yeah, just a little project, $19.6 million project. And there's still one more project at the intersection here for about $500,000 for a traffic signal system update, which is supposed to happen next fiscal year. So we'll knock on wood that stays on schedule.
What's the update?
So VTrans is looking at traffic signals kind of, well, I'm really aware of the ones in Chittenden County, but most of the signal controllers, so those, basically the computer that controls the signal, most of them are like 20, 30 years old. So they're doing, I think they're updating all that technology that's behind the light. I don't know, they may be replacing the lights and things. That's a pretty high amount, so I assume they may be replacing everything to do with that signal system. If you're real interested, I can try to find out some more detail, but that's kind of my generic answer to what that probably is. And then the next 2 or 3 pages are things that we do, kind of work on region-wide, that aren't specific to any one town. A couple things, we updated our demographic forecast, been working on the regional dispatch work, active transportation plan, we're working on energy plan, yeah.
Give you a 2-minute update on the dispatch.
That's always an interesting one. For those of you who may not be familiar, maybe touched on this in the past, and it was about a year and a half ago that we started that work with some funding from the towns that have dispatch staff. So that's Shelburne, who you primarily interact with, South Burlington, Winooski, Colchester, Essex, Milton's part of Colchester, and Williston. So the urban, the core towns. They have 30 to 40 dispatch staff between them, and they spend about $3.5 million on dispatch services amongst them. And for a variety of reasons, they were looking at, should we be looking at how to provide dispatch in a better way? You're fortunate here that Shelburne is a public safety answering point, so when you call 911, more than likely somebody in Shelburne's picking it up. For the other towns north of Shelburne, they get 911 calls, go to the Williston State Police barracks. They have dispatchers there. They find out what the issue is, and then they transfer it to the local dispatcher. So we had kind of a 2-step process going. So those towns want to see if we could make that a one-stop call like you have in Shelburne, and also combine to get coverage issues addressed. So every one of those towns has one person basically on overnight shifts. Most of them have one person most shifts. And so kind of looking at if they can combine services. So that's a little bit of background. I went through some study last year that looked promising. We then asked all the towns to kick in a per capita share. And I can't remember what Charlotte's share was, a few $100, I'm guessing, to continue the work. They decided that the best thing to do would look at forming a union municipal district, so essentially creating a new municipality for that service called the Chittenden County Public Safety Authority. There's a formal process called having a joint survey committee to develop that recommendation. That committee is wrapping up, I think actually this week or pretty close to this week, and is getting the draft agreement to create that district, that authority, reviewed by the AG's office. I think that may have come in today or tomorrow. And so I think that committee is going to be recommending to those select boards and city councils that they do form, or, well, I guess that they form a union municipal district, put it on the ballot for town meeting day in March. And so that's what's happening in those towns. In terms of implications for Charlotte, I think, keep in touch with what's happening in Shelburne. I think you guys have a contract with them, so you'll want to know what they're doing is going to obviously have implications for you. And hopefully they're not significant implications, but I just encourage you to just keep in touch with Shelburne as that process is going. So there'll be, for those 7 or 8 towns, each select board has to decide to put it on the ballot for town meeting day. So that's kind of what's happening in the next couple months here. And then we'll see what happens in March. And the idea is to try, and there's a 2-step, well, if there haven't already been 2 steps, from this point forward, there's still 2 steps that would have to happen, a town meeting day vote to basically authorize the creation of the entity. But then after that, the select board or city council would have to vote separately about whether they actually want to put money into the organization's budget and their staff into that organization. So there's
A semantic question.
Sure.
It's all new to me.
Sorry, there was a lot of
No, it's-
gobbledygook I just threw at you.
Well, it's very interesting and creative. I'm sure it's been done somewhere else. There's a model they're following.
Yeah.
That being said, there are other towns in Chittenden County
Yep.
who piggyback on other services, St. George,
Yeah, Heinsberg.
Heinsberg. So is the municipality that's being created only by towns, to only have a membership of towns that currently have dispatch services?
Yeah, so it's really those towns that have paid dispatch staff. And yeah, and so we, for better or worse, there are kind of two types of towns, those that have staff and those that contract for the service. You're obviously in the contracting boat. And so I think the group has been, I think, both concerned and trying to be sensitive to those relationships. Everybody is trying to go slowly and wants those relationships to be as good as they can. So there's two ways that they're trying to sustain it in the organization itself. One is making sure that there's, and I can't remember the label they put on it, but I'll call it the kind of advisory committee, which is all the chiefs, so the fire and rescue and police, if they have them, chiefs would all be on that committee to really be that feedback loop for how's the service, right? I mean, those are the people whose really lives depend on good dispatch service. So you'd have representation in that group with your chiefs. And then the second thing is, I believe they've created a seat for the contracting towns to participate on the board, if you will. Now, that doesn't mean each town has a seat, but there would at least be a seat representing the contracting towns. I think with the notion of making sure there was a loud enough voice at that table to respect the needs and the issues of the contracting towns.
And is this municipality county bound, or are there contracting towns in Franklin County and Addison County that are using Chittenden County dispatch services?
Yeah, Shelburne has contracts with, geez, I don't know how many towns, I want to say maybe 8 or 10 towns in Addison County. They actually are doing dispatch for all of Grand Isle County. So they are the only town that has really done a lot of contracting. Colchester and Milton used to have their own dispatch staff, but Milton and Colchester now have a contract.
And then do you have a sense of what the committee's idea or brainstorm is for setting contract rates?
They have, yeah.
I've gone to a couple of meetings
Oh,
with
have
these
you?
things
Okay.
and talking to the dispatch, and, with that, as the select board representative, what's it gonna cost? And so far, the thought is it's probably not gonna be much different than it is. The service and the time is gonna be, it's gonna be a who you're paying, not an increased rate. And in theory, there's gonna be some economies by consolidating all these various little dispatches, excuse me, into one. So there'll be money saved there. And the other thing that was, even though we are, Shelburne is primarily answers 911 calls if they are busy. The way that the call gets routed, it basically goes back to Shelburne, but through like using the bat phone kind of thing, and not the way it should be. So can be 4 to 5 minute delays just if there's 2 calls at one time, even though Shelburne is supposed to be the one, because if they're busy, then it goes to Colchester, and Colchester has to talk to Shelburne, and they pick up the bat phone and say, there's another one on the, so.
You could end up down to Rockingham.
Yeah, it goes.
The 911 system,
It's
all those
just
people.
like
really
phone
weird.
answers.
So anyway, with respect to the money thing, that's been handled through our fire department, and they've been going to most of the meetings. I know Rob and Chris Davis has been a couple. I went to a couple just to, because basically we're kind of on the side because we're contract people, but
Sure.
we're like, hey, don't be doubling our price. We're gonna
Right.
have to start our own then.
Yeah, and I think the group is really concerned about that, and, at the same time, they know there's gonna be some, if you're starting to kind of, even if you're starting with the existing pieces, you're starting a new entity, they're probably in a different space. They're talking about updating the computer systems and things like that. There's gonna be some costs incurred, so they've been, I think, careful not to make promises that they couldn't keep at this point. The other thing is they don't know how many towns vote to join. That's, if it's only 2 or 3, that may be very different than if it's 6. So it's still more story to come, and I think that was the important point I wanted to make about the kind of staging of decisions. There's going to be a town meeting vote to decide about creating the entity. There's still other votes of those elected bodies that have to be made about really spending money.
Yeah.
And although each one of those votes has implications for the entity's budget and costs for contracting, et cetera.
Thanks for taking the time to explain it.
Yeah, no, it's a little in process.
Yeah.
That's been the short answer.
Christina, you had a question or
Well,
comment?
actually, more of a technical question. I was kind of wondering, because we contract for police services with state police, and then our fire obviously gets, so when someone calls 911 for police services, does it go to Shelburne and then get kicked over to the dispatch in Williston for state police? Because Shelburne doesn't do our policing.
Right. I am under the...
phone and who's busy.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason of wanting to centralize it, because, technically it goes to Shelburne, and if it's from Charlotte, and then Shelburne would call state police and say there's a call, but if Shelburne's busy, like you said, it might go to Rockingham, and they're like, who do we call next? So the fee for that is not picked up by the town. The only thing the fire department pays for is the fire and rescue charges. So the 911 police calls are absorbed, I guess, through our state contribution to the state police.
But the state police have a seat at the table with this new municipality.
Yeah, they've been, they wouldn't have a voting seat necessarily, but there's definitely been some engagement because there is some implications. I think Chittenden County is close to 40% of the 911 calls in the state. Congratulations to us. Not really. But that's obviously a big chunk of the state dispatch service. So, their service would change if all these Chittenden County towns do set up the 911 call answering here. So they've been kind of in close touch with it because it has implications for their budgeting and resourcing going forward.
So the dispatchers are they still like town employees, or do they become employees of this new entity, or, are they gonna be moved from town to town? I just wondering what's happening with our dispatchers.
Yeah, I think, so some of those are not for sure known, but I think so this is my perception, is that they would be consolidated into one location. So there would be some movement, the Shelburne dispatchers would move to wherever the central facility is. And really so that we get those advantages of all the staff in one place to back each other up. Right now there's probably, tonight there's probably 9 dispatchers working across those towns. Maybe we only need 5 or 6 on a Monday night.
Unless you have the office space.
Right, but so there would be definitely some, at least workspace changes. And then there are, things about, most of them have contracts with their towns. There'd have to be some, how to reconcile those different contracts into, new employment arrangements with those employees.
Burlington's union,
Yeah,
Other ones are not.
Almost all of them are union.
almost, but
Yeah.
there was a couple at the table there that weren't union, so there was
Yeah.
some.
So, part of that process. So sorry,
Well, I'd like to know a little bit about the population, housing, employment forecasts, and tell us about that a little bit.
yeah, so, every 5 to 10 years, we try to update the forecast for the region. And I'm trying to pull numbers off the top of my head. I want to say going back like the last 15 years or so, we were still kind of working off of trends from like the 80s, 90s, that looked like we'd be at a population. I think if we look back at 2000, we were forecasting a population of 200,000 in the county by 2020. Well, now that's
Which was a growth projection.
a growth projection. Yeah, we're like at 160 right now. and probably, I don't know what we were in 2000, but, so a pretty aggressive growth trend. But over the last few years, in the 2000s, that trend has come down. And so I think now we're projecting to get up into like 180,000. So one of the things,
2020.
by 2040.
Oh, 2040.
So we've gone out further with a lower population. So I think trying to get more realistic that we're not growing that fast. Compared to the rest of the state, it feels like we're growing fast, but that's just relatively speaking. There's population shrinking in most of the rest of the state. We're growing. And so, so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's some, still some growth in Chittenden County, but it's like, more closer to maybe less than 0.5% growth per year, whereas, back in the 90s, we were probably over, 1% growth. So the growth rates slow down. Still looking
I saw in one of the statistics that Charlotte would only grow by about 1,000 people by 2050. That's what
That's
probably from some of
That's
your
probably
numbers.
numbers coming from us, yeah. Yeah, because we actually forecasted out to 2050, because the state required us to do an energy plan out to 2050. So we're like, okay, well, let's just get a forecast out there so we can get some numbers to work with. And, take all of those with a grain of salt. Like, that's kind of the best guess we have now. And there's a reason we update these plans every few years. And I think we also try to do these projections for use in town plans. So it makes some sense. But
Employment forecast?
the employment forecast, and now you're reminding me, so going out, the population forecast was a 14% growth. The employment forecast was more like 30 or 35% growth. So one of the things that was coming out of the forecasting work that we had this economists do was that we're still growing faster with job growth here, which means more employees are living outside Chittenden County, if you will. So we've been increasing the number of people that commute into Chittenden County over time. That, at least right now, that trend is forecasted to continue.
And what's the employment, for example?
Employment, right, rough numbers, covered employment, so non-agriculture employment is about 100,000. If we add in full employment, it's like 130,000. So then a third on top of that, I don't know, maybe it's 170,000 or something jobs by, again, 2040, 2050. So, if you're a fan of, some growth and some money coming into the county, it looks like, some economic growth continuing. See what happens.
Guess I'll take that into, yep.
Yeah. So, there's certainly
Consideration.
lots of things that could change and change those dynamics, but, so yeah, happy to
And
answer.
is
any
that
other
why
questions.
there's a push to, like for our trails, not our trail system, but the bike pedestrian? Is that something that you're focusing on too, if there's a lot of people coming from outside of Chittenden County?
Yeah, I never think of it as the bike trails and stuff is too much for people coming from outside, but certainly as our population is growing, I think it's having alternative ways for people to get around the county. Yeah, so V-Trans just updated their bike ped plan, and we just updated ours this year, and, I think just trying to make sure, particularly bicyclists, that we're thinking about the routes that they're trying to take and make it safer. We certainly have some narrow roads that are used a lot by bicyclists. I think as V-Trans, Route 7 is probably a good example. So those main roads are trying to add wider shoulders to make it safer for bicyclists, and also to be able to pull over if your, car
Are they
breaks down.
putting bike lanes on Route 7?
Not bike lanes per
Not
se,
bike
but a
lanes.
very wide shoulder.
Right, yeah, and that's kind of the technique that they're using now, is to make it, safer, so there's more room for the bicyclists on those roads. But, and then certainly there's other places where, towns are working on paths and things, but This, I'll stop talking. See if you have any more questions.
Yeah.
Grant money for emergency management. We're looking for some for generators.
Yeah, I think the state always has some. Let us know if we can help you with an application or anything. I can never remember when that comes
I
in.
called DPS, Department of Public Safety, and the call went around and around and around, and,
They said they don't have a opportunity right now?
right, they did several years ago, but if,
Keep watching it. Yeah, I feel like that, I don't know, every 18 months or something, they
Oh.
kind of pop up with one like, oh, hey, we have some money available for generators or other things. So, yeah, I guess it's one of those, keep our eyes open. So you did poke.
yeah,
Yeah, so, well, Lee will be over here some, so you can
Okay.
take advantage of him and see if he can.
Good, I can pester him.
Yeah, right. So,
and he's been right on it so far. As the select board knows, Lee Crone has come in to help us with our transition to another zone administrator, and he's been here training with Joe Rayum.
Did the Ferry Road ever make it on that map for the bike
Bike
path?
bed?
I know we wrote in a note about that.
Ferry Road, I think, did.
Like Champlain.
Well, connecting, I mean, it's not a,
Oh, going down to the ferry?
yeah,
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I don't think I ever saw it. We
Yeah.
sent a letter.
was this in our, like,
Yeah, it was the
plan?
regional
Because,
bike
I
ped
mean,
plan.
it doesn't, Charlotte's on the end, it doesn't really connect anything, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a ferry.
yeah,
So
right,
it connects
right.
you to New York. So,
Yeah.
Well, I'll check it out.
I
and
know
follow
some
up.
bike riders, you know, they do that, take the ferry and go right around New York or vice versa.
Right.
Come back over the bridge.
And that stretch of road from here to the ferry can be challenging on a bicycle.
Yeah. I'll check it out then.
I have a lot of people, a lot of bikers that come to the store and then head south and go around over to Hollow Road and then up Green Bush and all that. It's good, big circle. For some reason, I always have a problem with this line. Non-single occupant vehicle travel. To me, that drives me absolutely crazy. I just think it's like,
Where is that?
transportation demand management. We had that in our own town plan. I hope it's not there anymore because I'm gonna ask again for it not to be there because there are people that like to travel alone and travel around, and I don't want anybody on the side road going, oh my God, look at that person, she's alone in the car, she shouldn't be. I don't know, it seems very arrogant to me. To be really honest.
I think it's a shorthand for instead of listing walking, biking, riding the bus, or carpooling. So I actually think that's kind of the origin of people trying to find a shorter way of not listing those kind of four other ways.
Yeah.
The farther you get from a population center, the less
encourage-
practical that becomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah, we're
yes.
still, a very high percent of single occupancy vehicle.
And
For
we might
commuting,
be for a
60,
long
70%.
time to come, too.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just really, everything else is fine, but that just really bothers me.
Noted.
Always has, Dean can tell you.
Gotta throw out my motorcycle, damn.
I know, right? Just-
You also recently sent us a letter to invite select board members to the Chittenden County Municipal Legislative Breakfast.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us about that a little, or?
So, we've been trying to do this for the last few years, of just, having an opportunity for select board members, our board members and legislators to have a conversation about, a few issues that probably come up in the session. So I think this year, water quality funding, I think we'll be talking more about transportation funding, because we're just updating our transportation plan and our regional priorities at our board table. And probably housing and permit reform will be a couple other topics. I don't think permit reform is going to hit the legislature this year, but there is an effort to get it ready for 2019. So, and we may touch on opioid and mental health issues a little bit too, but
I think you're looking for 2?
Sorry?
Is it open to all of us or 2 select board members?
We're pretty flexible, I think, so whatever works for you guys.
Sounds great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Great.
for the invite.
Great if you can join us. Anything else? I know you got a lot of other things on your agenda, so I don't want to take too much time here.
You have a question, comment?
Yeah, Charlie, can you just give me an update on the rail situation?
Rail?
Yeah, so there's bringing Amtrak or possibly commuter rail back here.
Yeah, so Amtrak, those rail lines are, as I understand it, under construction right now. And if I had to guess, I think that Amtrak service will be to Burlington by 2020. So, I'd like to say 2019, but history has taught me not to be that optimistic. It'll probably get delayed another year or something. I think it may be as early as 2019. There's some station improvements that need to happen. So we're working a little bit with VTrans in Burlington on what happens at Main Street. And then Virgins will be the other stop. So there'd be a stop at Burlington, Virgins, Middlebury, Rutland, the Amtrak service. And exactly how that service happens, you may be aware there's that group headed by David Blittersdorf that he bought, 8 rail cars from Texas, I think. And I've heard even mentioned like they may contract with the state and Amtrak to run that service rather than have Amtrak cars. I don't know if that is a possibility. So that's kind of the shortest term answer to your question, what's happening with rail. In our region, the state has also been working with Quebec to get Amtrak service coming up the other way, the train that goes through Essex Junction to St. Albans to get to Montreal. So they've been working on that and kind of getting a customs clearance set in place for that train. And then last year, the state VTrans did a study to look at commuter rail, kind of from St. Albans to Burlington area to Montpelier, and came up with some really expensive costs for that. And David Blittersdorf, I think the group CHAMP P3, I think they're calling it, CHAMP Public-Private Partnership for rail. Yeah, I think there's some conversations they're still working on what could they do with those rail cars, and maybe that's some opportunity to, in a way, I think it would replace the link service right now that's by bus, right, from St. Albans or Burlington to Montpelier. So stay tuned on that story. I don't know where they may go with that. So, yeah.
I just want to say, I think we've received a lot of services from regional planning. I mean, every year, but this year in particular, to help with the all hazard mitigation plan, to help with the emergency preparedness plan, as I said, Lee Crone, help with energy planning, so really appreciate that.
Yeah, good. Thank you. No, I think, really the last few years since I got here, I've been trying to focus more on providing service to the municipalities and not being, well, even a little ivory tower stuff going on, but trying to have a good balance of that.
I've noticed a big change.
Yeah.
It's my 4th year on the board, and
Oh, good.
it's been great working with you guys.
3,500 homes by 2021,
Yeah.
approximately where, like mostly South Burlington maybe, or 700 of those are going to be affordable homes? Are they spread out through all of us?
Williston's getting them all.
Oh, Williston's getting all.
Well,
South Burlington's getting a lot.
most of them are landing, as you might expect, yeah, I mean, between Williston, Essex, South Burlington. I mean, in the coming year or two, Burlington's gonna end up with a lot between the Cambrian Rise and the
Town center.
redevelopment of their, downtown, town center there. And Colchester, Shelburne gets, then it gets lower as you go out. Milton, a good chunk in Milton too. But last year, so that's averaging 700 a year. In 2016 and 2015, we did about a little over 600 units a year. Last year was over 900. And so, it's getting up there. I think when we started keeping track, well, it was probably right after the recession, it was 200 or so. For a couple of years, it was 400 something, and so the last 3 years, it's definitely ramped up more. The Vermont Chamber did a study, and they were kind of saying we need to get 5,000 houses built to accommodate. One of the main drivers here, this isn't building for the sake of building, but it's really related to that employment issue, is that we're really hearing a lot from companies that they're having a lot of trouble getting an employee to locate here because there isn't housing that's affordable. Not affordable housing in the, kind of restricted sense, but just, market rate housing that makes sense for that employee. So it's really tied into our economy, and also just changing household size. As we're getting older, just a household size, whether we're empty nesters or you end up being a single person in a home or a one-parent household. So we're having, even for the same population, we're having to have more housing units to house that same population. And that's been a trend that's been going on 15, 20 years now, but that's continuing to drive the demand for housing. And as you know, it's not, housing in Chittenden County is not very affordable compared to our surrounding counties, or in general.
Does the CCRPC have a position about housing, or is it really just analytical?
Well, we've joined that coalition that was pushing, I think she was reading from the Building Homes Together paragraph there, where kind of joined the coalition that was trying to push for 3,500 homes, really to kind of say, we think this is important for our community to get more homes built in our county. So, yeah, I guess that's a position.
Yeah, sure.
Certainly supporting affordable housing also. But I think, I don't think we had really ever taken a position to say, no, we need more houses to be built in that directive manner before. We were always kind of saying, yeah, build more housing, and, where the towns plan for it, in the villages and things like that. But this is a little bit stronger statement than we've had before.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Good working with you.
Let's see, the 8:20 agenda item. Fritz, do you want to?
Charlie blew us off our agenda. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we're right on time, 8:20.
I spent some time walking around with Junior and the engineer, Jessica, and we kind of prioritized a couple of areas that were where the worst issues were. And I believe this is the one we picked as practical and buildable, where there were some obvious erosion issues. The whole concept is a rather interesting way they're going about this, but without really killing the schedule. The state has picked out, with nobody's input, picked out points on a map and say, these are the important parts to deal with. Don't have to worry about the rest of them. So of those important parts, we have to develop a plan to prioritize them and do work on them progressively in order to keep our citywide permit or townwide permit for keep the Clean Water Act happy. So in that line, we walked around with a map and the engineer and picked some spots. Some of them, they said their interns this summer said some of these were really bad, and we looked at them and said, well, no, they're revised it a little bit. And anyway, this is the next step is to start working on it and basically rock lining some ditches. So
is this on the west side of Mount Philo Road, Lime Kiln? Okay, very good. So you're gonna do these first? Then what's this, right? You're gonna do both of these?
Well, this is all one project. I really haven't had a chance to review this design. I should have, but I ran out of day. But just to use their standard state-approved details to fix the erosion issues identified on the state-drawn map. It's kind of like, and it's needed. I mean, there's erosion here. There's no doubt that this will improve water quality, so.
So stone line to keep it from eroding away and the sediment traps to slow it down.
We have if anybody's interested, I can go over the map and the whole, I don't know, there's what, 200 road sections, I think, Junior, that were on that list. Some are listed as various stages of severity. So our goal is to periodically, we have to go through and look at their list and address some of them. And or, for example, there was one they thought needed to be rock lined, and when you kick the duff away, they was actually already done. But that's an issue with rock lining a ditch, is after 10 years, you can't see the rocks anymore. There's still silt there, but it's not gonna make a rut, so.
Keep up the
Anyway,
good work.
I would make a motion to approve the grant application to address the runoff on Lime Kiln Road as written.
Is there a second?
Yep, yes.
Sounds good.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Say aye.
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 So I need probably a signature on the application. Are you around to sign, or do you want to designate if you're not around?
Does
I'm
Fritz
not
to
able
sign?
Yes, sure.
Nice.
Make that part,
He's our road guy.
yeah, make that part of our motion.
I think that was in there. Yes, part of the motion.
Just out of curiosity, the Converse Bay Road site that was right by the lake, is that, do you take a look at it, or you didn't have a chance to take a look at it?
We did. We didn't think that was as bad.
Okay.
And you have to be careful, so one of the things the state map doesn't take into account is the tributary area to these ditches. So you look at the one that's on, like Lime Kiln Road, and there's lots of fields. And you look at the one on Converse Bay, and, well, there's part of a parking lot. So there's erosion in both places. It's just that's part of the individual review of each site done by the local people as the state wants it done. That's why they asked us to do it. So instead of having to spend money on all of the engineering to figure out the volume of the water, they're leaving that in the hands of the experienced people like the road commissioner. So that's on the list. That's probably, I don't know, it's number 3, I think, when we were 2 or 3, when we got done with the priority. Their first priority was already done. That was the one that Junior did earlier this year on Lewis Creek, so. From that point, we were ahead of the game. That's it.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Junior. The 825 item, approve warning for the first public hearing for amended town plan, December 11th.
Peter's here from Planning Commission.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah, so it's time. We've been working hard on this for more than 5 years, actually. We really wanted to get it to as soon as we could so that we could get it for a town vote in March. So that's really the goal is to hand it off to you, the Selectboard, so you can hold 2 hearings necessary, and then we can put it to a town vote, assuming there's no, major corrections that are required to get there. So that's it. And it is a complete rewrite. we started it back in 2012 and realized that at that time we had to, your town plans had to be updated every 5 years. And at that time in 2012, having already started the rewrite, we knew there was no way we could complete it for 2013, so we readopted the 2008 town plan, which is what we've been living with since then. So this is, as I said, it's a complete right. We had a lot of input from various committees, conservation, a lot of energy committee, regional planning helped us out quite a bit, and maps. So we're feeling it's in a good state and ready to go on to the select board.
Okay, great.
Answer any questions. I can't tell you whether that verbiage is in there. I don't really heard.
Probably, I can imagine it still is. Sorry.
And as far as maybe an overview of the process looking forward, this is the first public hearing that the select board will hold. The select board has an opportunity to make minor edits and or major edits. Minor edits don't go back to planning commission, major edits do.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, technically it doesn't, even I think major edits don't have to go back, but, except for comment. The plan, you give it back to the planning commission for comment, but not for another hearing.
Not for, okay. And then a second select board hearing would be held.
And then basically, at the last meeting, there can be no more changes.
Which is the second hearing.
Which, I mean, you could have more than one, you could have more than 2 hearings.
Got it. Okay.
But
There's no
in
limit.
terms of the timeline for a March vote, you would only,
So
We
working
didn't
backwards.
really set it up for, it's not set up for more than 2.
right,
Right.
that's,
Which I always like 3, we know that, because it takes a couple tries to get people to know that we're doing that sort of thing, but
yeah.
it's fine.
I mean, the planning commission held a couple,
Yes.
So we're looking at sometime in January, late January, holding the second.
the second one, right, probably mid to late January.
Give us enough time for a 30-day warning
Yep.
for town meeting?
Yep.
Something like that?
Beginning of March.
So the first hearing would allow, so the select board can't hold it any less than 30 days from when it's submitted by the planning commission. So the planning commission voted on November 9th to submit it to the select board. So, approximately 30 days, the first regular meeting within that period is December 11th. So there's a draft agenda on the table for December 11th.
And how many people showed up at those 2 planning commission meetings?
The second one, there were 5 or 6. The first one that we had, which was about, I think, a year ago, there were quite a few, I would say maybe 20. Upwards of 20.
Well, I look forward to reading it.
The December 11th is on the flip side of November 27th.
Okay. Any other questions? Would someone like to?
I just started reading it today, so getting into it.
So it's posted on the town website. A few copies have been made for, 4 copies have been made for each of you, and then additional copies will be made for the public.
If I can just jump in, all the documentation is on the website. So after the first hearing that we held, roughly, I think it was a year ago, we created a spreadsheet, which is also on the website, all of the comments that we received at that hearing, and some that were subsequent to that. And then that's what we used to go through line item by line item to make sure that we hit all of the comments and notated, whether we agreed with it or we didn't, whatever changes were made. So that's also available as well on the website. Question, comment?
I was wondering if there's a document that you have put together outlining the changes between the old plan and the new plan to make it easy for the the public to read both plans is kind of cumbersome.
We talked a lot about that, but we did not, because since it's a complete rewrite, it just seemed like it would be really difficult to try to track it, because the sequence has also changed. So in the existing town plan, it starts with Charlotte yesterday, then Charlotte today, and Charlotte tomorrow. And in the new plan, it's completely reversed. The intent was to really put the core of the town plan, which is really Charlotte tomorrow first, and treat today and yesterday more as an appendix to tomorrow.
Is the old town plan still on the website?
The 2008?
Yeah.
Good question.
I mean, I'd like to know, that way people could look at both of them.
I want to meet the person who has the fortitude to read the old document and then read the new document within the same month.
Oh, leave them, put them on split screens and I can look at them.
I already would.
What I would suggest is you make one, if you look at the current town plan and read Charlotte tomorrow, and then read Charlotte tomorrow for the updated plan.
Order,
I think that would give you a good sense.
chapter 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 3 have been reversed. So when I look at, when I get the two of them on my screens, I can look at yesterday in the new plan and yesterday in the old plan, and I can see if they, at least that transferred from one to the other. And then if I get the two of tomorrow's on my thing, one in chapter 3 on the old one and chapter 1 on the new one, I can combine them, I can look at them and see if we're still heading in the same direction.
Are there any things that you know of that definitely have changed?
Well, I would say off the top of my head, the most significant changes are in the energy section, and that's due to the changes in the state regulations. So we had a lot of help from the Energy Committee on that. There's also a blurb about a paragraph long about Act 174, which was approved by the state in November. And that speaks to towns who are looking to have substantial deference in regards to alternative energy sightings in town. So we met with the Energy Committee about that and realized that it wasn't, it's very comprehensive. There would be no way that we could have incorporated that into the town plan and have it ready for March. So what we agreed to do was reference it in the energy section, and then we're actually going to be discussing it Thursday, but that will be something that we'll have to amend in the town plan over the next year.
Now, does this lead into the bylaws and doing amendment to the bylaws for siting?
Like you described.
And screening and, site planning?
You're talking Act 174?
Yeah.
Or you mean anything
Well,
else?
our town plan. I mean, originally, we started putting the energy, renewable energy in our town plan, because at one point it was, you can't enforce siting and other things unless we first getting into our town plan.
That's correct. So we amended the town plan 2 years ago for that smallish part of the energy section, yeah. And then since then, we've been working on it, we've made more changes to the energy section. But
Right, part of that's the high public value lands.
But I can read you a little blurb here about it. This is about Act 174. It says municipalities and regions that plan to the enhanced standard envisioned by the Act will receive substantial deference before the Public Utility Commission with respect to both land conservation measures and specific policies included in their plans when the commission looks at the quarterly development criteria. So it's not, Act 174 is not mandatory. A town does not have to necessarily do that, but I think we certainly do want to do that. And actually, by the time that, I think we could have applied directly to the state if we had incorporated it in now. But since we didn't, what we'll end up doing is it will be approved or not approved by RPC when we eventually incorporate it and amend it.
Just another quick question, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Will the new town plan necessitate changes to our zoning bylaws as far as zoning districts go, or lot size or density calculations?
Is there a discussion of it in the town plan?
Well, the new town plan adopted sort of changes to the zoning regulations related to those.
Yeah, so any changes that are made in the town plan wouldn't automatically change anything in the land use regs, but in order to say, if I understand you right, if we were contemplating a change in zoning in a particular area, in order to do that, we'd have to be saying that in the town plan. That ultimately that change would have to be made in the land use regulation.
Well, that basically my question. Will the new town plan sort of necessitate us updating our zoning regulations to adapt to the new town plan?
It's depending on how you look at it, it's possible. I mean, one of the if you look at one of the maps in the new town plan is the future land use map, and so there are targeted areas of potential areas of cluster development going forward. And this was the outgrowth of a workshop that we had probably 3 years ago, just brainstorming on where future development might happen. So that map is incorporated into the proposed new town plan. So when we look at that and say, well, yeah, if we want to do this, it might potentially require changes to specific area.
Is there a motion to approve the first public hearing?
I'll make that motion to have our first public hearing for the town plan, December 11th at 6 p.m. At 6 p.m.?
Do you want it at
You want it at
7
6?
PM? I
Yeah,
was,
because look,
Oh, sure.
yep, 7:05.
And to
Monday,
warn it in the
11th,
papers of
yeah.
record.
And warn it in the paper of record.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those, any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Opposed?
Great. Kudos to the planning commission
Thanks,
for
Peter.
getting it to this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Herculean
7:05.
task.
7:05.
The 8:30 agenda item is the acceptance of the final scoping report for the 3 sections of the Town Link Trail, STP BP 15, parentheses 14 by Du Bois and King, dated October 2017. So essentially, Du Bois and King has finished the scoping study for
Right.
the trail from the state park to Town Hall.
Right.
And they've provided a document that would just have the town agree to the final price of that scoping study and to signify that the town accepts the study and the product of it. So If there are no questions, looking for a motion to accept the scoping report and authorize one of us to sign.
I'll make a motion to accept the final scoping report for the Town Link Trail. I guess it's identified by the number, the STP BP 1514, dated by Du Bois and King, dated October 2017, to be signed by the assistant, what's your title? Vice Chairman of the Select Board.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Discussion?
Okay. I was just going to say, this is really for the purpose of getting reimbursed. It doesn't mean the town agrees to the content or is taking any particular path, but it basically says the study's done. We're going to ask for our portion of the funds
We
that we paid.
received the report.
Right, yeah.
Linda?
What do you say? Do you know?
Oh,
I
great.
didn't read it. Is there a report, a final report?
There is, yeah, it's, I'll print you a copy. I cut down a couple of trees in order to print the select board a copy, but I'll cut down another one for you. Yeah,
Is
there.
it different than this one, or is it the same one?
Let's see the date. Yeah, it's different. I'll print
A
it out.
bunch of
another-
trees fell down the stars. You have to cut any wood.
Go pick them up.
Pick them up and use them.
And will the report be made available online? Is the Trails Committee doing that, or? can
Yeah,
we do that?
I'll do that, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yep. I think it's actually in the packet for this meeting. It's online. If you go there. But I'll put it on the town website as well.
Just to kind of showcase it.
Yeah.
And make it
I
easy
wasn't
for people
sure.
to navigate to.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I don't want to download that, I was afraid to.
Where was it in the packet?
It's in the packet under like,
Those are maps. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the scoping report? Say aye.
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 Opposed?
get rid of that.
So can I just make a motion to contract with CW Stageworks for the sound system at town meeting 2018?
Second?
Okay, I do that.
Any
All in
discussion?
favor?
We've gone with them for many years now, many moons.
I love them. Preferred contractor.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah. I'll
we're
shoot
catching
you an
up.
email on this, right? I'll shoot you an email.
So, and then we should really make a motion to appoint Dean Block as interim zoning administrator, interim sewage control officer, interim 911 coordinator, and deputy officer,
No, that would be health officer.
deputy health officer. What did I say?
Should be health officer.
I did say health officer, I didn't.
Don't you
Coordinator.
agree, Dean?
What's that?
It should be health officer?
Yeah, yep.
No, I just
Oh,
didn't
no,
read
no.
it. It does say health officer.
Well, I see what you're saying, that Joe is the health officer.
Oh.
We thought that there will be someone, basically, if there is no health officer, by default, it's the select board chair.
Right.
So there will be a health officer, even if there is not one appointed. So we thought because there's going to be, we're in transition, someone else is going to be hired, that we didn't need to go through this step of actually appointing me as health officer for a month and then appointing somebody else, because it seemed like we had the bases covered.
Statutorily.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
And
that's
so
fine.
this is going to be for about a month, probably.
hopefully.
We're hoping.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So this is to be, so we're hiring a zoning administrator that's gonna do the health office, that's gonna do the sewage control officer stuff.
Yeah,
And the reason for you being appointed,
it's just to sign it because our contractors with regional planning, they're not gonna sign the permits. They're gonna do everything up to the point of signature. And then they don't wanna take on the liability for actually signing permits.
so we'll leave that into a town employee.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay,
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, Dean. 8:45, Thompson's Point leases. Lot 148 at 122 North Shore Road. This is a motion to terminate the lease to Sally and Michael Catella and approve a new 20-year lease to Charles and Julia Russell. Are any of the parties present? Okay. I spoke with Mary about it. Pretty straightforward. There's going to be new leaseholders, and they need to terminate the old lease and have a new 20-year lease with the new owners.
Do you want to do this with 2 or 1 motion?
I think, let's do 2, just because the other one is technically the same. It's just a little different.
I meant for each one.
Oh, yeah, let's do 1. Terminate at the same time.
I'll make a motion to terminate the lease to Sally and Michael Catella for lot 148 at 122 North Shore Road and approve a new 20-year lease to Charles and Julia Russell at that address. Is this to be signed by the,
Actually, I guess it needs a notary, so, are you able to?
I'm a notary.
Oh, cool.
Justice of the peace.
to be signed by the vice chair?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, go for it.
The second is for lot 183 at 900 North Shore Road, is to terminate a lease to William H. and Karen D. Brewitt, and to approve a new 20-year lease to William H. and Karen D. Brewitt. Here, Mary said the situation is they are refinancing, and the bank is requesting a 20-year commitment on that refinancing. So we're going to terminate the lease and start a fresh one with 20 years. Is there?
Sounded like a motion to me.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Authorize Carrie to sign.
Okay.
I'm joking.
Authorize the vice chair to sign. Carry to notarize.
Oh, yeah, you have to notarize it. Any discussion?
Is the bank gonna be on this as a lien holder?
They can't be.
It can't be.
There's that agreement we signed once already that allows, should the people default, it allows the bank to sell the remaining lease. Did we sign one of those couple of meetings ago? When they asked, there's a form.
Okay.
I think that was 2 or 3 meetings ago.
I think the bank is technically only owning, the mortgage is on the building, right? Not on
Right.
the lease.
Yeah, on a leasehold improvement.
Gotcha.
But they have something that allows, like, there was something that we've had drafted that allows them, if there's a default, the bank can be the person that releases it and it doesn't all default to the town.
Fine. I was just wondering if that paper had been done.
Well, Mary last time said they only do it when the bank asks for it, so apparently they didn't ask for it.
Okay.
We did the 850 item already, so
So did we
855?
approve this?
Oh, did
Did we
we?
vote on this?
Not yet, sorry. Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, select board updates.
Well, we covered my updates about the road thing, so if anybody wants to be no more about that, I'll be happy to give them the map tour and describe the program, but it's kind of one of those, here you are, you gotta do this things. So it's like, yeah, okay.
Well, I heard there was a car that drove underneath the Route 7 culvert already, or could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, I heard that too. I guess there had been, I don't think it was actually a bollard, but somewhat of a partition at the north end of the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail where it goes into the lower Old Town Trail. And in the state construction, they actually constructed part of they constructed the underpass, obviously, then part of the trail that comes out of the underpass. They removed that in the construction process. Apparently didn't replace it. I think Trails Committee did put in a barrier on the west side of Route 7 prior to any construction. And I mean, I think they were hoping that the state would replace that barrier, but at this point, I think probably we or the Trails Committee, I'll speak maybe inappropriately for them, but could do it and do it, it would be fine, and that would keep people from driving from Lower Old Town Trail to the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail and then on the underpass.
So when I walked that, there was a driveway just north on the east side of the culvert, right?
Right.
Or the underpass. A car could go in that way? Sure.
That is
how they
that's what
went.
happened,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised to see that.
What kind of
I thought
barrier
there
was
could
there
be
before?
better construction or something.
What kind of barrier?
Yeah.
I am not sure. A member of the Trails Committee said there was a barrier there. I think it was maybe a couple of sections of fence. I'm not quite sure.
Where I'm talking about?
Yep.
I almost
Or-
feel like
Is
there
it
was
the-
a more substantial hedgerow too. It really looks like it's been cleared wide open. I don't remember it being that wide open so far away from Route 7.
I think they needed
Yeah.
to for construction.
And so what are we doing about that? So that we don't have more vehicles doing that same thing?
I've suggested to the Trails Committee that they put a barrier in there.
May I have those emails that you emailed them?
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna copy me on Trails emails.
I didn't know
I
what
would
you
have
wanted,
liked
but I'm happy to send those to you.
Okay, thank you. All of us, you wanna know, Matt? You, the engineer, probably should look at that to make sure that it's
Something big and heavy.
something big and heavy.
Couple of waste blocks from
Or maybe two.
SD Ireland.
Because
I suppose, we could ask V-Trans to come back and do it. But they're buttoning up, most of Route 7 and.
And how's State Park Road now?
Well, it was
That
going
they've-
good until they striped it and made an oops. I called them the other day, and I think Dean emailed them and said, you didn't stripe it where you said you were gonna stripe it. You put it right back where it was, which was the wrong
Exact,
place,
right.
so.
Now what?
They haven't called me back.
I have a comment about the underpass. It'd be nice if you're gonna put a barrier on cars, that it wouldn't be a barrier to animals that might wanna use the underpass.
It's not a barrier on the underpass, it's a barrier on the north end of Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail from Lower Old Town Trail.
Oh, way up there.
Yeah.
Well, what about by Route 7? Couldn't you go in?
That's where Old Town Trail and the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail come together.
Yeah.
It's just a wide open
Space.
gravel.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that was part of their
Area.
access that they had
That's
to
not really the
actually
north
do
end, is it?
to
Did
do
you
the
say
underpass.
north?
So that access should have
End
been
of it.
Use
removed.
some big rocks or some
I
less
guess-
attractive waste blocks from.
Well, that's true, just big rocks would
Yeah,
do it.
something that a car is, get stopped by, but animals can go around or over, whatever.
Sure.
I try to think of the landscaping, I mean, those big concrete blocks would work easier, but they're ugly.
Nice to get some giant boulders from Heinsberg Sand
You
and
could
gravel.
have some.
Well, you have a couple.
Yeah, could you take some out of the rock pile in front of my house?
It's
Oh,
all
yeah.
glacial route, right?
Well,
It
isn't
goes
that
right in the
really
middle of
way
the
to do
gravel
it?
road, so I guess the point is, I mean, a gate is probably appropriate, or,
Another question, it was originally designed for tractor underpass, for agricultural use.
way back, yeah.
Is that no longer acceptable use? Because
I-
a tractor,
Agricultural use is an acceptable use.
so they would need to not be blocked.
agricultural
traveling
car that
through
went
there.
through there, it was okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that really the issue is between Lower Old Town Trail and the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail. That's where the, Lower Old Town Trail is basically a private road.
Right.
I was just gonna say, on the other end of the Melissa Trevor Mack Trail, they just have a cement pylon like that is set into a cement sleeve. So when, like, the vineyard needs to use that road, they can remove that sleeve, go down through, and then put it back when they're done. So that could be something that could be done at the end of that if tractors are, but just keep in mind, if it is put there, it is movable. So if you get
That's right.
a few young kids,
Sure.
they could easily remove it and drive through. But that's the way it is on the other end.
You can lock those if you're,
What's that?
if you put it, you can lock those those single things.
Good, yes.
I mean, you could put a way to lock it, but that sounds like something the Trails Committee needs to design.
Just FYI, I received a public records request regarding the Hops Farm from one of the neighbors, asking for all correspondence about it, which I'll provide.
Thank you.
They may ask for other officials too, I don't know.
This is what I'm really glad I don't email. I don't think I have a thing on my computer
I
about
can just have
Hops.
my Yahoo
Yeah.
email file, because I don't even know the password to get into it. They can have it.
Billion.
I haven't used it, there's gotta be 20,000 emails in there. Have every one of them, please.
I know, I wonder how I haven't looked at that one either.
Geez, it sounds like we're looking for a motion to adjourn here?
Yeah, no other updates. We do have warrants that need signatures at some point, and a motion to adjourn would be great.
Yeah, I'd put one of those out there. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?